हेलो दोस्तों, नमस्कार। आज हम लोग करने वाले स्मार्ट स्कैन का रेलवे का जो भी थोड़ा बहुत टॉपिक कवर किया था उसके आगे का करेंगे। पहला चैप्टर ख़त्म हो गया था ना, आज दूसरा करते हैं। रेल जॉइंट वगैरह क्या होता है, डिफेक्ट एंड ट्रैक ऑन द स्ट्रेसेस। डिफेक्ट एंड ट्रैक स्ट्रेसेस, टाइप ऑफ द रेल जॉइंट, चैप्टर नंबर 2 आर स्मार्ट स्कैन का रेलवे, चैप्टर नंबर 2। टाइप ऑफ रेल जॉइंट अकॉर्डिंग टू पोजीशन ऑफ द जॉइंट, पोजीशन ऑफ स्लीपर, पोजीशन ऑफ जॉइंट, जॉइंट के अकॉर्डिंग पोजीशन, स्क्वायर और इवन रेल जॉइंट। स्टैगर्ड और ब्रोकन रेल जॉइंट। पोजीशन ऑफ स्लीपर्स दो टाइप का होता है, सपोर्टेड रेल जॉइंट, सस्पेंडेड रेल जॉइंट, ब्रिज जॉइंट, compromise joint. According to the position of joint, square or even rail joint. Joint in rail with rail or track is directly opposite to the joint in a parallel rail. This joint is provided in straight length of track in a parallel rail. This joint is provided in straight length of the track, but nowadays staggered joints are more favored. At present, such as joint are commonly used on a railway line. Joint स्क्वायर जॉइंट बोला जाता है। स्टैगर जॉइंट क्या होता है? दी जॉइंट बोथ रेल और ट्रैक आर नॉट डायरेक्टली अपोजिट टू ईच अदर। ट्रैक आर नॉट डायरेक्टली proportional to each other. It is produce some smooth running. ठीक है। According to position of the sleepers, suspended rail joint. If an extra sleeper provided below the end of the joint, extra sleeper है below the end of the joint, both rail and this type of sleeper is called, this type of joint is called supported joint sleeper. End of rail rest on the sleepers. सपोर्टेड जॉइंट स्लीपर्स, सपोर्टेड, अच्छा सस्पेंडेड नहीं सपोर्टेड है, वही तो कह रहे हैं, सस्पेंडेड होना चाहिए हवा में। रेल जॉइंट, सपोर्टेड रेल जॉइंट, सस्पेंडेड रेल जॉइंट, दिस टाइप ऑफ जॉइंट एंड रेल आर सस्पेंडेड बिटवीन टू स्लीपर्स, सम पोजीशन ऑफ रेल cantilever at the joint. It is most commonly used joint in railway system. This joint become loose due to the hammering action of locomotive ropes. It provides greater elasticity and case less disturbance, so it is a widely adopted. Suspended rail joint. It is mostly commonly used in the joint. The joint becomes loose due to the hammering action. ढीला हो जाता है हैमरिंग एक्शन की वजह से, यही सबसे ज़्यादा यूज किया जाता है, फिर कस देते हैं। ब्रिज जॉइंट, इट इज़ सिमिलर टू अ सस्पेंडेड जॉइंट, ओनली डिफरेंट इज द sufficient length of metal is used to connect the end of the two rails so that there are no bending stress in the rail. Bridge is placed at the bottom of the rail and rest on the sleepers. It is not used to Indian Railway में यूज नहीं किया जाता है। Comparative a composite joint, it is a type of the joint in which two different rail sections are jointed by faceplate. Compromise या composite joints. Welding of rail joints. It is the ideal, strongest, and most perfect joint. Benefit of weld joint: more stability in longitudinal, vertical, and lateral direction of tracks. Lateral direction of tracks. Reduce creep, increase life, reduce maintenance cost, reduce length of joint or increase in the rails. Welding of rail joint. It is ideal, strongest, and most perfect. Benefit: more stability in longitudinal, vertical, and lateral direction of loads. Reduce creep, increase life, reduce maintenance cost, reduce length of joint, increase in the rail. Method of the rail welding: gas pressure oxyacetylene welding using joining of metal. Electric arc method: electric arc metal welding. Flash butt welding. Flash butt welding, thermic welding. Rail joint in railways. Rail joint in railways thermic welding की जाती है. This is a mixture of the metal oxide and aluminum powder. Type of welded rail: short welded rail SWR 3 से 5 से 10 rail are welded together. 3, 5, 10. 3, 5 or 10 rails are welded together. Short welded rail. Flash butt welding is done. It contract and expand throughout of the length. Long welded rail 200 meter broad gauge or 300 meter long. 130 200 meter broad gauge or 300 meter gauge rail length are welded approx up to 1 kilometer. Long welded rail कहलाता है. Thermite welding is done. It is not undergo any longitudinal contraction or expansion due to temperature variation. Continuous welded rail CWR rail welded longer than 1 kilometer. Continuous welded rail. It is a type of the long welded rail, continuous welded more than 1 kilometer. ब्रेथिंग लेंथ क्या होता है? इट इज़ द मिनिमम लेंथ ऑफ द वेल्ड एट द ईच एंड ऑफ द लो welded rail या continuous welded rail, long welded rail या continuous welded rail, which is not subjected to expansion or contraction on account of the temperature varying. Breathing length, the minimum length of the welded rail at which end of the long welded rail, continuous welded rail, which is not subjected to expansion contraction on account of temperature variation. The portion of the low welded rail, continuous welded rail, or undergoes the expansion and contraction is known as the breathing. Breathing ये है. Switch expansion joint. नॉन ब्रेथिंग लेंथ, ये इतनी तो ब्रेथ करेगी, बट ये ब्रेथिंग लेंथ. इस पर कुछ नहीं होगा और एंड वाली होती है टोटल लेंथ ऑफ लॉन्ग वेल्डेड रेल. टोटल ब्रेथिंग लेंथ इज इक्वल टू 2n minus 1 into s. N is the number of the sleepers required. S is the sleeper spacing. Switch expansion joint. It is the expansion joint installed at each end of the long welded rail or continuous welded rail to permit expansion or contraction on the adjoining breathing length due to the temperature variation. Expansion joints are installed in order to the absorb stress in the ballast bed. In order to absorb stress in the ballast bed caused by a movement of the bridge frame. Switch expansion joint. Oh, expansion joint है. Defect in the rails, kink or shoulders. This is due to the loose packing at joint and defect in the gauge. The end of the adjoining rails move slightly out of the position. Kink or shoulders बहक जाता है. When the end of the adjoining rails move slightly out of the position, shoulders or kinks are formed. Shoulders or kink are formed. Uneven cage, uneven wear of the rail head, loose packing at the joint, defect in gauge or alignment. इस टाइप का रोरिंग ऑफ रेल्स, क्लिंक ऑफ रेल्स. out of the position. Roaring of the rails, corrugated rails. If there is the corrugation or minor or minute depression on rail surface, then unpleasant roaring noise is caused due to passing the train over it. This phenomenon is called roaring of rails. These defects are usually created where brakes are applied on train or train started. यहाँ से स्टार्ट होता है, यहाँ पे ब्रेक लगाया जाता है वहाँ पे बन जाता है रोलिंग ऑफ रेल्स, खड्डा खड्डा टाइप। बकलिंग ऑफ रेल्स ड्यू टू insufficient gap in expansion joint of rail, there is not possible to provide free expansion in the direction of length of rail. So track has gone out of its original position or buckling due to insufficient gap in expansion joint of rail, there is not possible to provide a free expansion in the direction of the length of rail. So track R goes out to original position, goes out of its original position or buckle in the lateral direction. Lateral direction. This phenomenon is known as buckling of rails. Buckling usually takes place on the tangent length or at curve. It is also due to the excessive creep. It is also due to excessive creep. Buckling of track can be corrected by tightening the fish bolt. Fish bolt लगाने से buckling of track can be corrected. ये है बकलिंग ऑफ रोल। इतनी खतरनाक बकलिंग कैसे हो सकती? हॉगिंग ऑफ रेल्स, सांप की तरह फट गया। हॉग्ड रेल्स, ड्यू टू बैटरिंग एक्शन ऑफ wheel over the end of rails are bent down at the joints. These rails are called hog rails due to buttering action of wheels over the end of the rails are bent down at the joint. These rails are called hog rails. It occurs mainly due to the loose packaging under the joint and loose face plate. Wear of rail means either the top or side or end of rail head get removed. Top side or end of the rail head get removed. It is one of the prominent defect of the rail. By using the less number of the rail joint and good maintenance of the track, wear of rails may be reduced. Less number of rail joint and good maintenance of track, wear of rails may be reduced. It is one of prominent defect of rail. By using less number of rails, using good maintenance of track, wear of rails may be reduced. Case of wear: slipping, skidding, striking on flange, on curb, load, large load, high speed gap at the road gap at the rail joint. Type of wear on the rail. Due to the absorption of the movement of rails on the movement rails, rails should be changed if the weight of the rail reduce up to 5%. 5% अगर रिड्यूस हो जाता है ड्यू टू वियर के कारण 5% रिड्यूस हो जाएगा इसका वेट, तो इसको हटा देंगे. वियर ऑफ द साइड रेल. साइड ऑफ रेल thrust head due to the slipping of locomotive wheels. Maximum tolerance including the side wear 4 meter gauge. On side tolerance 3 से लेकर 6. On straight 3 से 6 mm. On curve radius 3 से लेकर 15 mm. On straight line पे 3 से 6 mm. ऑन कर्व 3 से लेकर 15 mm टोलेंस चलता है. रेडियस अगर 290 से ज़्यादा है, 290 से कम है तो 20 mm से कम होना चाहिए टोलेंस. 3 से 15 mm. अगला टॉपिक on broad gauge track, the straight length and curve up to 6 degree, 3 mm tight to 6 mm slack tolerance है ये. 6 mm slack for 6 से 10 degree, 13 mm slack. Meter gauge track for the straight length and curve up to 6 degree, for curve 6 से 10 degree, 3 mm tight to 15 mm slack और 6 से 10 degree के लिए 13 mm slack. Wear of the end of the rail. Wheel 1. It is the case due to the slipping of the locomotive wheel on the rail surface. Wheel burn होने लगता है. Coning of rail. Coning of wheel. Surface of wheel are made in the cone shape at the inclination of 1/20. The same slope is provided in the rail. Is known as coning of wheels. Surface of wheel are made in the cone shape at the inclination of 1/20, and the same slope is provided in the rail. This is known as coning of wheels. The slope of the wheel countered the centrifugal force acting on the train. It enabled the train wheel to cover different distance along the inner and outer curve simultaneously. On curved track, outer rail distance are greater than inner rail. This extra distance of outer rail is adjusted by the coning of wheel. When the locomotive travels on curve, a centrifugal force acts on it. Due to this, outer wheels move outward and has to travel longer distance as compared to inner distance. When locomotive travel on the curve, centrifugal force acts on it ड्यू टू दिस आउटर व्हील मूव टुवर्ड्स, बाहर की ओर जाता है, हैज टू ट्रेवल लॉन्गर डिस्टेंस एज कम्पेयर टू इनर व्हील pressure purpose to keep the train in the central position of the rail. Coning does not provide any lateral movement on the track. Lateral movement on the stator to avoid the discomfort of the passenger, to reduce wear and tear of the rails, to avoid damage inner faces of the rails, to reduce slipping of rails. Creep of rail. It is a longitudinal movement of the rail with respect to a sleeper in the track in a track in direction of the motion of the locomotive with respect to sleeper. Cage of creep. Wave action or wave theory. Persuasion theory. Drag or dragging theory. Straightening, accelerating, slowing down or stopping of train. Expansion or contraction of rail due to the temperature. Case of creep. Wave action of wave theory. Percussion theory, drag or dragging theory, starting, acceleration, slowing down or stopping train, expansion or contraction of the rail due to the temperature, unbalanced traffic curve, rail condition, creep of old rail more than the new rails. Wave action of wave theory क्या होता है? According to the wave theory, the rail creep is created due to the formation of the crest curve ahead of wheels, resulting formation of crest curve ahead of the wheels, resulting from the rail deflection under the load. Wheels push to the wave with tendency to force rail in the direction of the train movement, causing creep. दबाता है, बढ़ाता है, वही हो जाता है wave action. As per the wheel move the lift in front of the moving load is carried followed by the wheel and cases creep, whereas the lift at the rear of the wheel get back to the normal position. The wheel moves the lift in front of the moving load is carried forward by the wheel and cases creep, whereas the lift at the rear of the wheel get back to its normal position. Direction of movement. Unlock position. Rail table. Lift. Wave motion theory of development of creep. वेव एक्शन थ्योरी. रेल टेबल है, लिफ्ट हो गई है, ये हो गई है अनलोडेड पोजीशन ऑफ रेल. As per the wheel move the lift in front of the moving load is carried out forward by the wheel and case creep. This lift at the rear of the wheel get back to its normal position. ये वेव मोशन थ्योरी है. पिच और डेप्थ ऑफ द वेव डिपेंड ऑन पिच एंड डेप्थ ऑफ वेव depend on the stiffness of track Track modulus stability of formation. Creep is directly proportional to the depth and pitch. Reduction of creep or wave action. Reduction of creep or wave action increase the traffic stiffness, less slipper spacing to increase slipper density. Larger rail section, angular or heavy ballast with good interlocking. Percussion theory. According to the percussion theory, creep occurs due to the impact of the wheel of rail end ahead at the joint. Horizontal compaction. Horizontal component of load P pushes rail in the rail direction. And casing creep. केस वीक एंड लूज फिश बोल्ट के कारण, वाइड एक्सपेंशन गेट और लूज पैकेजिंग के कारण, हैवी एक्सेल लोड और हाई स्पीड मूविंग व्हीकल के कारण हो जाता है। परक्शन थ्योरी ऑफ द डेवलपमेंट क्रीप। ड्रैग और ड्रैगिंग थ्योरी। अकॉर्डिंग टू द ड्रैग थ्योरी, बैकवर्ड thrust of the driving wheel of locomotive has the tendency to push the rail backward. According to drag theory, forward thrust of the driving wheel locomotive has the tendency to push the rail backward, while the thrust of the other wheel of the locomotive pushes the rail in the direction which the locomotive is moving. Creep measured with the help of the creep indicator. Creep is an excess of 150 mm should not be permitted on a standard track. 150 mm से ज़्यादा नहीं होना चाहिए. No creep should be permitted on approaches of point and crossing. No creep. ऐसे तो 150 है बट नो होना चाहिए, बिल्कुल जीरो होना चाहिए इन सब चीज़ों में. प्रिवेंशन ऑफ क्रीप. पुलिंग बैक द रेल को पुल बैक करके बाय प्रोवाइडिंग एंकर और एंटी क्रीपर्स एंकर्स और एंटी क्रीपर्स. पुलिंग बैक द स्टेट एंकर्स और एंटी क्रीपर्स. Anchors are fixed to rail either by weight action, by clamping, by strip grip. By weight action, wedging action, by wedging action है. वेज लगा देते हैं इसको यहाँ पे रेल एंकरेज. by select by the stripping grip. एंकरेज होता है, स्लीपर होता है, इसी में स्ट्रिप कर देते हैं स्ट्रिपिंग को. बाय क्लैंपिंग तो जानता है हर कोई. तो ये हमारा दूसरा चैप्टर ख़त्म हुआ, तीसरा होगा स्टार्ट कब. तीसरा भी किया जाएगा, पहला दूसरा तीसरा 3 पेज का है. 1 2 3 4 2 दिन में ख़त्म हो जाएगा, 2 से 3 दिन में. ओके, तब तक के लिए कीप रीडिंग. बाय बाय.